Hello, and thank you for tuning in to our first in a series of ProcessMiner University podcasts. I'm Tom Tulloch, Chief Commercial Officer of ProcessMiner, and I hope you subscribe to our podcast series featuring thought leaders in the manufacturing industry. Our aim is to deliver engaging content designed to educate you on the latest technology trends driving Industry 4.0 transformations. Our first podcast features an interview between co-founder and CEO of ProcessMiner, Karim Pourak, and Michael Walton, 35-year manufacturing veteran and consumer packaged goods expert who currently manages one of Microsoft's most strategic customer portfolios. Be sure to listen carefully and gain valuable advice from two of the most highly regarded thought leaders as they cover topics including operational excellence, monetizing factory data, and the execution of quality improvements for top and bottom line growth opportunities. Karim and Michael, welcome to the first ProcessMiner University podcast. Now over to you for an enlightening and educational conversation.
All right. Good afternoon, Michael. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure talking to you again. I wish it was in person, but considering circumstances, this is the best that we can get from your time, obviously. So, Michael, I'm going to start with your background and experience for I think nearly 35 years in manufacturing, and I'm sure you have witnessed a lot of different changes. And what's your perspective on the trends that you have seen been gaining rapid adoption in manufacturing in the past few years?
So for the past few years, what I've witnessed most is, believe it or not, is the key trends around trying to get operational excellence, whether that is for top line or bottom line improvement. Top line, I've witnessed a lot of organizations and operational excellence through whether it be in manufacturing, the plants themselves, or in the supply chain, to better ensure that they can, as they diversify their sets of products, they're able to deliver on time, in full, the highest degree of quality with the best potential internal price point. So when people talk to me, oh no, that's bottom line improvement. No, that's actually a differentiator in the market for them for top line, as well as bottom line improvement for those that have grown through acquisition or trying to rationalize their organization through COVID to ensure they're delivering the best cost performance to their company. So that's really where I've witnessed a lot of really deep efforts.
Gotcha. So and those efforts obviously are aligned with the company's overall Industry 4.0 and digitization sort of strategies, right? So companies understand that they have to collect data. They have been collecting data, but they have a hard time monetizing or turning that data into sort of a profit for their companies. What's your advice for companies that they put these type of strategies together and collecting this data, but they have a hard time putting a strategy to monetize this and bring quick value to their organizations?
Well, I mean, the number one reason that digital transformation projects run into churn, disruption, or even potentially failure is because the misalignment between understanding what they want out of the data and having control over the data. I'll give you a great example. I just had a discussion with a customer that'll be near and dear to your heart. That customer had said to me twice, last week and this week, was it the prediction that was in the dashboarding and doing the data mining that really was the reason that we improved our OEE by 2%? And mind you, 2% in the commodities market's a big deal,
exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And so, or was it the fact that we made the process adjustments? So the business leader was saying we made the process adjustments. The IT people were saying, well, no, it was because of the dashboarding and the insights to the data that was predicting this. I would argue, and I did last week and this week, and they've come to the conclusion now, they're with me, that it's a misalignment of understanding around what are the key measures and what's the data that you're collecting and mining. So, when looking at OEE, would think, wow, we can increase it by 2%. That's pretty fantastic. But I forgot or well, they forgot that they were a company that really didn't measure OEE that much in their history. So it was relatively new to them. You see my point?
Yes.
Complete misalignment. So no matter how much AI, prediction, technology we put on them and was all delivering goodness, the business leaders still would have thought, oh, it's a bunch of people down at the plant that were doing a bunch of things that made the change. It really wasn't the dashboarding.
That's a great point. So that brings me to actually a couple other questions. One, I think the phrase you use is misalignment is very much applies here. Now, another sort of a part of this misalignment is misalignment amongst different groups in one organization, right? We have experienced this multiple times. We sit in the C-suite, talk to different executives in a company, and everyone has his own idea of implementing AI, Industry 4.0. And what's your advice for companies to get aligned, per se, on objective of these type of science and technology implementation into their organizations?
So I would have to say that the business needs to be more open, I think, the business leaders to the technology leaders in the companies. You know, the technology leaders, they're gaining fast maturity in Industry 4.0, right?
Yes.
Artificial intelligence is not new. ML is not new, machine learning. A lot of companies also think that, that the technology people keep the lights on. I would argue that the technology people actually have done enough research that they understand in many ways what key metrics the company runs on and how to define them, even potentially better than some of the business leaders. I know that sounds like I'm trying to be, trying to tote what IT leaders are doing, but IT leadership in companies have been long trying to aid and fulfill on their mission to these businesses. I have found the business leaders actually fighting them on saying, no, I know what my OEE is. I was in a meeting the week before Thanksgiving, a virtual meeting where I'm telling you, I had a plant leader that is in charge of the second largest plant at this very large process manufacturer. And he said he had 118% OEE. Completely not true, couldn't be, never could. That's all, and it's just a complete misunderstanding of how to calculate it and what the measurement really even is. And so now I'm seeing people trying, if they just be open to revisiting what their key metrics are on what they want to drive as outcomes, then they can align the technology to it. It's always successful.
All right, very well put. So, and this brings me to the next question about the ROI, right? So, a lot of companies that are out there, and we are researching this notion of companies achieving ROI as quickly as possible based on the investment that they are putting into toward AI and machine learning and Industry 4.0. There is they don't have a clear sort of a measure of what that ROI is. A lot of folks, they think that, all right, I'm going to increase my throughput, that's my ROI. If someone looks at it and says, hey, I'm going to increase my quality, is my ROI. And then we are looking at all different aspects of, for example, the workforce alignment, right? We have a major workforce retiring wave right now that is going to create a gap on expertise in this manufacturing, right? What do you think the right approach would be for these companies to truly be able to see these different ROIs that they would see, these value propositions that they see in their sort of Industry 4.0 objectives?
So I've done everything from cognitive plants to just the basic remote monitoring. I've also been involved in internal on time in full kinds of ROI, supply chain, all the way to the larger, broader, huge supply chain transformations. And I can tell you that, first off, it frustrates a lot of company leaders and people or practitioners trying to research ROI. Invariably, the reason why is because the customers aren't going to put their ROI out there for their competition to know. I mean, that's just, they're not going to do it.
Right.
So I'm passionate about the numbers I'm about to share with you. I can tell you that on the extreme end for discrete manufacturers, I've witnessed as much as 20 to 25 points of OEE increase. In some cases, extreme cases, up to over 30 points. But you know what? On those extreme cases and the larger end, often the company, the lowest common denominator was they didn't really understand what their OEE was, or their on time in full fulfillment was externally or internally. In fact, they didn't truly understand what their quality metrics were. They thought they did, but the master of disguise, and yet the best solution I think I've ever seen until now, is Excel. Excel can do a great job at a lot of things, but one thing it surely can do is give you your own version of the truth when you're sharing it up. And when your company allows that and your incentives are driven on certain measures. So I would say to those, be open to it, because as much as a third gain, it's not impossible. It really isn't. In fact, I would argue things like operational equipment efficiency, anywhere from 5 to 10, maybe 15 points in 18 months. I've witnessed as much as a more than from a absolute other metric I love in quality is getting into near parity of less than 2% quality and defect. And even as in some things as repetitive manufacturing, less than a fraction of perhaps somewhere north of less than 0.1%. I mean, that is near Six Sigma. It's unbelievable what I've witnessed. And then technology aiding the continuous improvement factor to improve on those. I mean, what used to take, many, many months or a year to get a continuous improvement, you can do in weeks, if not days.
Absolutely. And the numbers, these small percentages in a commodity world, they carry huge value with them, right? And one of the challenges that we have also seen is the customers sort of sometime unrealistic expectation of the AI would be a magic. If you bring it in, then I'm going to get 30% right off the bat, right? Which actually, it may be true in the long run, right? So they have to understand that it's a marathon, not a sprint, obviously, right? The whole concept of what we do as an artificial intelligence for manufacturing is to bring a system that learns, and they have to be patient with it, and they have to work with it, right, to get to that value. Which brings me to the question of how can we bring the quickest value to these customers? So the challenge has been that the adoption sometime by the folks that working in these manufacturing environments. Not that they don't want to bring new technology in, but they want to also trust the technology that is coming in. So we at ProcessMiner, we are emphasizing a lot on autonomous control, and we have been very successful at that. We learned that the quickest way to bring the value and apply the recommendations of our AI system to improve the quality, throughput, and other savings is to apply these recommendations on a timely manner through the IIoT platforms, right? So I'm very interested to hear your opinion about how do you see this trend of autonomous control, closed loop, in the manufacturing, and how would you characterize its future in the overall sort of a concept of AI for manufacturing?
So let's start out first with the labor gap, and it's not going to get smaller. It's going to get bigger.
Right.
And so I can't, I really cannot, I've got customers that are 10, 20% short of their labor force, and they're doing everything they can in this COVID period to protect the labor force that they have. So I can't bridge that with just robots. I just can't do it. So I need to be able to manage the process in a way that allows me to have the advantage to bridge that gap from the labor that I can't fill. I also have to do it in a way that collaborates with my labor workforce, because I don't want to scare the heck out of them trying to get rid of all my labor, right? Thirdly, I've got to do it in a way that as I move through the life cycle of my business, I've got to have agility. It can't be static. I got to have a lot of agility to be able to create net new product in a fashion that's rapid, and I've got to be able to adjust to that so I can meet demand in the market that I now see that maybe last month I didn't. The way to do that is with autonomous systems. They run with AI and cognitive. Now, it sounds really expensive, sounds uber hard to do. I would argue that actually it's not. There's a lot of maturity in the market for those that have been doing it. It's just that a lot of customers, they're still stuck on trying to rationalize their ERP. And I would argue stop, because these systems don't need all that. Because of AI and the way that they work, they can learn from those systems, and you can make much, much more transformation this way. And believe it or not, the people love it. The employees love it when they're being reinvested in. They see the tremendous value in training the system and being the coach and the expert. That's what I have witnessed. You tell me, so Karim, what have you saw? Because I know we dialogue about it, but share with the audience also firsthand what you've been witnessing.
Absolutely. I think you brought up a great point about maybe they're hesitant in the beginning when you approach them with that concept, but when it's in place, they love it, right? And to give you a great example, we have a customer that we have been working with for about 6 months now. And in the beginning, when we designed our aligned our platform with their process, we approached the customer and told them that we can close the loop for you autonomously, and with the timely application of the reuse recommendation to your system, we can gain the optimal value. And the customer obviously was a little hesitant. First, of course, you're going to take over the control of my system. And the philosophy for us at ProcessMiner is always think big, start small, right? So we approach this with a very small control in a very tight settings on one of their machines, and showed them that these autonomous control concept, as long as in a safe settings, is not going to harm anything on their system. And they immediately start seeing the value in it, multifold value, right? In terms of first, now they have a system that is not just working based on experience or based on a hunch or based on just the standard operating procedures been in place for years. Now they have a system that has an in-depth understanding of the characteristics of a machine. Then the same customer asked us to open the control to other aspects of their machine. The same customer now has gained 25% reduction in one of the chemicals that they have been using on a system. And guess what they did? They told us last month they want us to now control all those grade of products that this chemical get fed to. And this request has come from the operators, right? These are the people that we felt like we had the challenge to make them adopt the system, but now they are the ones that they see this as a support system for what they do. So the term I always use also is an artificial intelligence as an intelligence assistance, right? And as long as we can prove that to them, right, we have seen it firsthand that it's become their favorite system per se. And I think one thing that you mentioned about the concept of understanding of AI system, it's a lot simpler. It should be a lot simpler than what they think. It doesn't need to be another major SAP system, for example, right? It could integrate with what they have and deliver a lot of value by itself there.
And I could totally agree with you. I've got a number. I mean, I don't remember one project in the last, say, 4 years or more, say 4 or 5 years, where that once the operators were able to deal with it, that they didn't say, no, please do not remove it. We need this. And I want to tell you the other thing is that I'm seeing as a trend. It's not a mega trend, it's a micro trend, but I'm witnessing it in the process manufacturing. I'm witnessing smaller plants, faster footprint. Now, if you've got a cognitive plant or an autonomous plant, I can now take those controls and move them anywhere in the world I wish. I can set up small factories anywhere and be able to spin them up very quickly. Now they all have their uniqueness, right? And so the autonomous, the AI will learn those uniqueness, things like temperature, all kinds of different other controls that might be feeding, other things either externally or internally. But my point to you is, I am witnessing smaller plants being more distributed around the world, and they're wanting to run them with fewer people. Well, if you're going to run them with fewer people and you're going to do it faster and you're going to have greater agility in your plants on what product you're going to be making, there is only one answer, and it has to be an autonomous or cognitive plant.
Absolutely. And then consolidation of a data amongst all these different entities in a different geographical area has a major value to itself, right? So when you build this cognitive plant, as you mentioned, the collection of the data and consolidation and presentation of that data on an enterprise level becomes a lot more efficient and actually valuable for these organizations. Because we see that continuously in the companies that, all right, now we have collected all these data. What is it that we're going to do for them, right? And manufacturing by nature is a sort of a entity-based concept, right? They have one company, multiple locations all around the globe, and bringing all that information together in a real-time basis gives a lot of decision-making power to the executive level of these companies, right? Economics, all the competitive advantages that they can have comparing to their competitors and so forth.
I can tell you too, I want to mention quality. Quality is something that to get to that high level of quality, you have to go to a autonomous layer. People can't adjust fast enough. The machines need to be able to identify their irregularities with the learning that's been put in place and make the adjustments very rapidly. I wanted to mention that as a call out because I often see some customers are trying to address quality in a way that is urgently addressing a problem now. I would argue, had you had an autonomous system, you'd been able to avoid or rapidly respond to that quality problem with near real-time adjustment versus 90 days sometimes to solve some of these quality problems.
Absolutely. So that's how we, at ProcessMiner, the way we phrase this is we are actually changing the reactive process control to proactive process control.
That's it.
That's the only way to be able to gain the most value out of the quality optimization at any process, right, in manufacturing. All right, great. So a lot of companies are acquiring different type of technologies, Michael. And Microsoft Azure is one of them that brings a lot of capabilities to these companies. Now, what's your advice for these companies if they want to bring an AI system in to get the most out of their investments into, let's say, Microsoft Azure, for example?
Well, I mean, I would say that first off, I made the move to Microsoft myself, and I did it specifically because I felt they were the strongest leader in the manufacturing world for engineering and manufacturing. For me to make the difference in the last 5 years of my career, albeit I thought, they would be the leader, and they have proven to be. I can tell you that they're at almost every manufacturer in the world. Azure itself gives them the tremendous amount of agility at a tremendous cost point with a lot of tools. Our go-to-market is very much heavily slanted as a platform enabling key partners like ProcessMiner. That technology and those advancements we're investing in continuously. Some of them are adopted first party, but many times it's always through the partner who has advanced them by pulling together and making those investments. The enabler is a platform for AI. I don't think anybody can beat us. I really don't. On the flip side, we have so many partners that have invested so heavily on bringing these kinds of advantages to our customers that it's just by far the market leader. And I would say with ProcessMiner, you're on the higher end of maturity. You're on the higher end of value for our customers. So instead of writing AI, you can get these things directly from our partners like you. Specifically in talking about you, why would you write something to reinvent the wheel when I already have a partner like you who can bring them the maturity and that investment, that ROI can be realized even so much more faster.
All right, and absolutely, and ProcessMiner, actually our platform of choice is Azure, just because of the reason that you said, price and different capabilities that Azure platforms provides. All right, my last question, 5 years from now, a lot of companies are, it's inevitable that these companies have to get on the train of the Industry 4.0, right? What is your advice for these companies that they want to start adopting, or they're already adopting, but they are not feeling the benefits yet in the next few years to get them to the point that they truly see the value? What are your advice for them?
So I'll first go through the advice, and then I'll talk about what I see in 5 years.
That's great.
So the advice is, I would ask business leaders, don't be passive anymore. There's maturity in the market. Do not allow technologists to have it easy, should I say. Demand the change, demand the improvement, stake the claim, stake the challenge. Do not cut the technologists short. They will find a way. The maturity is out there. That's what I would say to you. I've not really said that so much till this year because of the maturity, the examples of what right looks like. They're everywhere. And you don't have to be a gigantic strategic customer in the world to do this. You know, I'm witnessing small companies, medium, large, all the majors. I'm seeing transformation happening everywhere. So first, I would say from an Industry 4.0 perspective, the business leaders, it doesn't have to be IT, the business leaders demand the change and come at them with key KPIs that you're demanding incremental improvement on and have a take on that improvement. I've got a customer who 18, 19 months ago was completely dark on cloud. The CEO got smart and educated on it very quickly, came back and challenged his CTO, CIO, and 2 of the business heads. And I'm here to tell you now, they have saved over 100 million. They met their target to their stakeholders, right? So to their shareholders. And I can tell you that that's just the beginning. And that is not an exception. I would say that's more the standard. So business leaders, be bold, put the claim out there. Don't sit back and relax. The second thing I would say is that IT, you've got to be out there looking at companies like a ProcessMiner. You've got to see the maturity. You can't scale doing it all yourself. That's all I can say. If you think that I'm wrong, check out all the different customers out there that are doing it, that are at the maturity end. They're not doing it all themselves, right? So you can't scale everything, right? So that's that. Now on the trends, I'm seeing that in 5 years, I just had a paper that's going to be coming out that I contributed to that's talking about the autonomous plant with cognitive AI and robots that collaborate with humans. The linchpin in all of this truly is pre-built machine learning algorithms that can be reinforced in their learning. And we call that a higher end of AI. That is what you're doing. And I can tell you that it is here to stay, and the companies are going to push it. It's not going to go away. There'll be some more robots. It's all going to be wrapped around AI. And if you're not doing it, think about it. The last trend I wanted to share with you is monolithic plants. Some companies will continue to do them, but I would argue many are looking, just because of the disruptions in the market and the technology's maturity to enable creating a more distributive environment where they can manufacture around the world and not have all their eggs in one geography or in one supplier, is definitely a trend that I would pay close attention to in the resiliency of a supply chain.
I couldn't agree with you more. Michael, thank you again for a wonderful and very informative conversation here. I really appreciate it. I hope our audience I'm sure as much as I learned, they're going to learn from this conversation. And thank you again for your time.
No, thank you. And I appreciate it very much. I look forward to more customers being transformed with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of ProcessMiner University, featuring guest speaker and thought leader Michael Walton of Microsoft. Be sure to tune in to our next podcast featuring John Eunice, Chief Operating Officer of Litmus, a leading IIoT firm, as he delivers the latest insights and trends taking hold in the world of edge computing. In the meantime, stay safe and innovate boldly.